I have labelled some videos on this channel as homeschool, homeschooling, homeschooled and so forth. The reason I've done this is not because I like the term homeschooling. In fact, I hate it with a passion. It really grates. It's an American term. That's not why I don't like it, because a lot of American English is actually preferable to British English in a number of ways. But the reason I dislike it is because it has these two words in it, home and school, which imply quite negative things. One is home tends to suggest that the child is isolated from the rest of the community, which is by no means the case. The other is that school suggests that we sit there and we sit them down and we teach them lessons, and it goes on and on all day and all this sort of thing, which is not an appropriate way of dealing with education for most children that are not actually at school, because there's no need to have everyone do the same thing at the same time, and that would get rid of the motivation. Obviously there are some people who do that, and there is such a thing as school at home, and it will be done more efficiently at home than it would in school, because they get more attention and so forth. But that isn't actually what we do on the whole. Although every child's needs are unique, and there may be a few children that will benefit from that approach to learning, or it may be a few families that do that. But that's not what we do. So it's not homeschooling, because it doesn't just occur at the home, it occurs everywhere, and it's not schooling. Nor is it home education, however. Now that's the term that we tend to use, but it's not right either, because again, it doesn't occur in the home, and education is something that happens from birth up until death. It is not something that takes place which you have to sort of instill in children. I mean, obviously there are other meanings of the term education that are more liberal than that, but that's not it. I use the term on this channel as a tag to attract attention, homeschooling. The word home education is no good either. So if you get rid of those, what have you got left? I suppose you might have unschooling, that's fairly good. It doesn't actually cover everybody, because some people do actually do school at home. The main points I'm trying to say is that these children are educated in the community. They do things like they go to various activities with children that do go to school or don't go to school, and they're educated by obviously their parents, by looking at their parents. It's an active activity. Human beings are learning machines. They don't need to be taught, they just learn on their own. That's one of the essential things about human nature, because we are primates. Most parents home educate most of the time. What I mean by that is that through a child's compulsory education period in this country, they are going to spend 8% of their time in lessons. And as a result, most parents, that is parents whose children are not in care, parents whose children don't go to independent schools, and a number of other categories, will actually be home educating all the time. They'll be home educating full time at the beginning of their child's life. They will then diverge a fraction of the rest of their child's time as childhood. Their children will be going to school. However, we all home educate in the sense that home education means anything at all. I prefer to call it parenting, to be honest. Now, most of human history and most of the world doesn't have compulsory schooling, and it's not existed. It's only existed because of some decision made in Prussia in the 18th century. Almost all of human history, there was no school. It's not the kind of thing that happens, and it's not the way in which species without reproductive strategy can efficiently operate. So, do schools have a function? Well, yes they do, but it's a function of being a childcare facility of last resort. That is, if you can't find any other way of looking after your children because you've both got to go out to work outside the home, and you can't take your children with you because your workplace is not child friendly, and you cannot find any neighbours or family members to care for your children during that time, then sadly, yes, you are going to have to send them to school, and that is the function of school. And it's the kind of thing that got set up as a result of the Industrial Revolution, because parents were going out to work and didn't have economic control over their own livelihood. That is the purpose of school. It's not educational, except in the sense that children will pick things up from the structure of the school. It is just a childcare resource, and it's perhaps a necessary childcare resource, but you should assiduously attempt to avoid that unless your child is really suited to going to school, and there will be a few, because children are all unique and have separate needs. But they will be in a small minority. So, it's not homeschooling, it's not home education. We all home educate, and schools are a childcare resource and not an educational resource.